I've been keeping shrimp for more than 2 years, and today, I want to get a little personal and share with you some of the mistakes I've made. My goal is to help you learn from my mishaps and prevent you from making the same mistakes. Let's dive right in. My first mistake was improperly acclimating new shrimp that I had purchased. When I first got into shrimp keeping, I never realized how sensitive these creatures were to the smallest of changes. This primarily included water parameters and temperature. I initially used to treat them like fish and place the bag into the tank for about 20 minutes to acclimate. What I always found after I released them was that I would have a few shrimp die within a week or two. I could never figure out the reason why until another shrimp keeper told me that I should try drip acclimating them for 3 hours before introducing them to my tank. After following his advice, I found that the survival rate of my shrimp was practically 100%, as the slow drip method gave the shrimp lots of time to acclimate to the water parameters and temperature. The odd one would die from time to time, but that's to be expected as it's always harder for adult shrimp to acclimate easily. Ever since then, I've been drip acclimating all of my shrimp. Now, for some of you the 20-minute method may work, and if you're finding success that way, continue to follow that method. For those of you who are experiencing the same issue I did, try drip acclimating your shrimp for at least 3 hours. The second mistake I made was making changes to my tank after placing my shrimp in it. I love aquascaping and creating ecosystems for my shrimp and fish, but moving the hardscape around within the tank always stressed out my shrimp more so than my fish. Stirring up the debris within the substrate probably caused the water parameters to get affected, which caused the shrimp to dart around the tank as there was a chemical imbalance. Shrimp love stability, and the less you change things around, the happier they'll be. Nowadays, I ensure that everything I need to do aquascaping-wise is completed before I add any inhabitants to the tank. Once they're in the tank, I usually won't touch it other than for maintenance purposes. My third mistake was trying to keep shrimp with aggressive fish. When I first got into the hobby, one of the first fish I bought was a male betta, and I always thought that they were only aggressive to other male bettas. Boy was I wrong. The first tank I kept him in had 2 ghost shrimp, and over the course of 2 weeks he ended up being the only one in the tank. I then placed him in a tank with multiple male Amano shrimp, and every single one of them went into hiding. For over a month I thought he had killed them all. When I moved him to a new tank, that's when all 5 of my Amanos came out of hiding. In this third tank of his, I figured I'd add a bamboo shrimp as it was about the same size, but within hours of adding it into the tank, the bamboo shrimp decided to jump out as it wanted nothing to do with my male betta. Now, each betta is different, and some will get along with your shrimp, while others, like mine, will decimate a population or bully them, which will stress them out, eventually causing them to die. If you have a betta, test it out, but have a backup plan in place in case you find it being aggressive. If you have larger aggressive fish, it's best not to keep them with any shrimp, especially if the shrimp can easily become a tasty meal. My fourth mistake was adding shrimp to a newly built tank that wasn't established. I've done this a few times over the years, and it's because I was impatient, as I wanted to see how they would look in their new home. The problem was that the tank was still going through the nitrogen cycle, which means spikes in ammonia and nitrite could have easily happened at any time, killing everything. Also, biofilm hadn't really formed anywhere in the tank, which means there was nothing for them to eat, and that would mean I would have to supplement their diet with food right from the start. This could then trigger ammonia and nitrite spikes as the food broke down, as there was no beneficial bacteria as the tank was still going through the cycling process. With newly built tanks, it's best to wait for at least 2 weeks or more before introducing any shrimp to ensure that there is some sort of stability within the tank. Patience is key, especially when it comes to shrimp keeping. My fifth mistake was making large water changes using water straight from my tap. This is something I never knew until months down the line. I always wondered why my shrimp would sometimes die shortly after a water change. It was then that I found out a few things. 1. Shrimp don't like large water changes. Usually 10% to 20% is the max you want to change. 2. When filling water straight from your tap, the temperature is not the same and there's chlorine and chloramine in the water which needs to be treated. All of these fluctuations in parameters I found stress my shrimp out, and some would die as a result of this. Nowadays I fill a container with water, treat it with a dechlorinator, heat it to match my tanks, and let the water sit for a few days. As a result, the water will slowly match what I have in my tanks, and this allows me to make partial water changes without stressing out any of my shrimp. And finally, for my sixth mistake, I medicated sick fish in the same tank as my shrimp. This is sometimes unavoidable when you're first starting out, as you may not know about quarantine tanks or how shrimp can react to certain types of medication. This is knowledge I lacked as I had not done my research. In my 15-gallon tank, I had a bamboo shrimp and red cherry shrimp along with some nanofish. I then purchased 2 dwarf gouramis, but instead of placing them in a quarantine tank and medicating them accordingly, I placed them right away in my display tank. A few days went by and I noticed that one of the gouramis looked like it had ick spots on it. The first thing I did was raise the temperature of the tank, and this was probably one of the first things that started to stress my shrimp. Then, I added an ick medication into the tank to treat my fish, and this did not go over very well with my shrimp. After a few hours of medicating the tank, I noticed that all my shrimp were hanging out at the surface of the water. At first I didn't do anything, but then I couldn't locate my bamboo shrimp, and that's when I noticed it had completely crawled out of the tank and was halfway across my room walking on the floor. That's when I decided to take action. I picked up my bamboo shrimp and placed it back into the tank, and then proceeded to do a water change. It's one of the rare times where I did multiple water changes over the course of a day. After the third water change, I noticed that my shrimp were slowly going back to their normal selves and returning to the lower sections of the tank. There is a possibility that something in the ick medication did not go well with the shrimp, or the medication somehow depleted the oxygen levels in the tank to the point where my shrimp needed to hang out at the surface of the water. If you keep fish and shrimp together, and you notice your fish is ill, remove it from your main tank and place it in a quarantine tank to treat it accordingly. This quarantine tank could be a small fish tank you purchase, or a plastic storage container you convert into a quarantine tank. There's a host of other mistakes I've probably made that I have yet to list, but for now, I hope you take away something from these initial 6. Mistakes will happen, but don't let them deter you, because as long as you're willing to learn from them, you'll be just fine. Use your mistakes as opportunities to improve your skills and provide the best possible care for your shrimp. This is a hobby that can bring you a lot of enjoyment. If you enjoyed this video and would like more shrimp keeping tips and advice, please consider subscribing. Stay tuned for more of my upcoming content, but in the meantime, check out any of the following videos. I'm Andy, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.